of this committee. To my right is the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis, the Honorable Mary Norwood. To my left, the Honorable Michael Julian Bond, the Honorable Ishay Collins, the Honorable Byron D. Amos, and the Honorable Antonio Lewis. Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Moved by the Honorable Antonio Lewis, seconded by the Honorable Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Can all council members please vote? Yeah. One moment. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
May we have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by the Honorable Antonio Lewis, seconded by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open.
Yes.
Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
We are now ready for public comment. We have 7 speakers that have signed up. Ms. Sonia from 3600 ML King Jr. Drive.
Hi. I'm here to talk about the businesses at the 3600 block of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, specifically the Citgo gas station at 3657 and the MLK Mini Mart at 3665 MLK. We are the property owners of an apartment complex of 28 units fully renovated in 2020. Behind that complex, we have seen our occupancy in the last 3 months drop from 86% to right at 60% because of the crime and the perpetuating of the crime going on at these businesses. We have replaced our fence seven times at this point, our gate multiple times. We've reached out to these business owners with nothing back. They seem to be letting it perpetuate. We're getting daily calls from our tenants, live sex acts, drug trafficking, multiple other things. But there's so much that I could say and I had planned to say, but I guess the biggest thing to say is I probably wouldn't be standing here right now talking to you. I went to the property. We have over $200,000 worth of damage because of the users around there getting into our property. Prior to coming here, I was at the property and a gentleman came after me with a broomstick. If it had not been for one of the workers with a gun, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. And we cannot get this, the police come, they've been called 5 times this weekend, and they come, but they're outnumbered. This is not their problem, this is the problem of the businesses, that this is allowed to go on. Saturday night, there was no less than 20, 30 people in the parking lot. They have put a pool table in the middle of Mini Mart. This is not a bar. This is a market to buy. And we're trying to get this under control. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. And when people talk about housing in Atlanta, this is what's going on with landlords. This is what's going on if we don't get support. We cannot sustain this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We do have our deputy chief here. We have our deputy chief here. Chief, will you please speak with her and see if we need to schedule a community meeting regarding that 3600 ML King Jr. Drive. Next speaker, Bensanta Gouda.
Thank you, council members, for giving me an opportunity. I'm again I work with Sonia, one of the partners at the property. So we work with some community members in Wine City, and they advised us against doing anything in that area. But against their best advice, we went and actually started renovating this property. We did it really well. Thought what, we should actually make these homes like the way we live in our homes. We made, but the last 1 year has been a real problem for us. I think people breaking in, as Sonia was saying, I think all kinds of act. When we try to stop them, either they come try to beat us up or spit at us. It's really disgusting. It's there are a lot of single moms staying in the units. There are young kids, and it is just not an environment that you would want the kids to grow in, right? I think so we request the public, this committee to help us out. I think do what we can to fix that one. As the businesses around there is where all the congregation happens. And at night, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, we have been sitting there until 2:53 in the morning on some days, just to see what we can do. And doesn't matter what we do, people try to break in. They have all kinds of tools. As the fences have been cut multiple times. It is probably a few $100,000 of damage. And it is while the current mayor, the previous mayor, both of them have said, I think Atlanta housing is an issue. We have done our best to do housing in that area. Just half a mile down, above that block, 3781 MLK, it's perfectly fine. 3616 and MLK, where these units are around these businesses, are just a huge problem. So we request for the city to act upon this, and I think protect the people that stay in this. You don't want somebody to be injured, and I think it to become a bigger thing. So thank you so much.
Do you have any security on the property?
No, I think it's kind of unaffordable. $65-$75 an hour, I think, is not, is something that we can't, we have tried it. So we are actually, we have had somebody that's going to come in this in the next couple of days and stay there. So we are thinking to get the unit occupancy up, and then until that, have the gentleman there to actually protect to take care of the units. So yeah, we are planning to do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
This property is located in Zone 1?
Yeah,
And that's
it is
Zone 1?
Zone 1, yeah.
Okay.
I think it is a couple of, maybe a block down, where there was an officer-involved shooting recently, I think, on the gas stations. It is where a lot of drug dealing and stuff goes on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Ms.
so much.
Crystal Dunn, D-U-N-N.
Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Dunn. I'm a resident at 3669 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, and I just want to piggyback on some things that the owners were saying. There is a lot of drug activity along that 3600 block of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. Just to, again, piggyback on some of the things they said, a lot of drug activity, a lot of crime. There's one homeless lady in particular who's always anytime I see her, she's unclothed. She's completely naked. The only thing I've ever seen her on was a wig. That's it.
Good Lord.
Let me see. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I work at least 12 hours a day, so for the most part, I'm away from home. However, I fear for my safety, leaving and coming from and to work. It's just, I don't know. It's a lot of crime, and I'm completely terrified for my safety living in that area. And just to piggyback on you all asking them about the security detail, they did state that they did have someone to come out to assess the property and give them a quote regarding it, but the security company, they declined taking on the detail because of the high crime rate in the area.
Aaliyah Berry.
Hey, how y'all doing today? My name is Aaliyah Berry. I live at 3669 MLK. I have 3 children. It takes me approximately 25 to 30 minutes to get out the car to pump the gas. Me and my son was just recently over there Thursday, and it was after I picked my son up from school. He's only 12. He was offered drugs. It's unbearable. I don't send my kids outside because it's not safe. My kids can't go to the corner store and get a bag of chips because they might not make it back home to me. So it's very uncomfortable living over there because of the gang relation, the drug activity, the people that hang out at the store. It don't make you feel comfortable walking in and out the store. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Chief, what do you suggest these residents do in this area?
Good afternoon, Deputy Chief Collier. And so I was just speaking with the owner of the apartment complex, and it's going to take more than us just arresting those individuals out there. It's going to take a group project. That is a situation where we can't arrest our way out of it. It's going to take some nonprofits and some other services to deal with the drug users that are out there. As you know, I was a former Zone 1 commander over that area, and that area has been plagued with purchasing of narcotics in that area. So what I'm going to do is put together a meeting between us and the DA's office and some nonprofits to see what we can do to get rid of that situation.
In the meantime, do you think we can get some more visible enforcement there so that the children and the parents will feel safer in the meantime? Maybe-
Absolutely.
What about a camera? Could we move a camera there or
Yes,
something?
absolutely. And we'll get the times that the children get off the bus as well. I did that when I was out there, and we will conduct a lot of enforcement out there as well.
What about the stores?
At the
They're saying that the
Yes, at the
stores are a problem.
And so what we got to do is look at the owners and look at their permits and require them to have some type of security at that location, being that there has been a lot of drug dealing at those locations. And so that's what we'll do as well. We'll get our license and permits unit to go out there as well.
The Honorable Antonio Lewis, followed by Michael Julian Bond.
And thank you, Chief. I love the language because we know we can't lock up our way out of none of these situations anymore.
That's correct.
Part of the ways we've been able to decrease crime by 28% and 22% in District 12 Zone 3 is by using some of the same tactics that you want to use. We partnered with Mothers Against Gang Violence last year, and we were able to decrease it across our district. There's a new tactic that people are looking at nationwide, and I wanted to make sure I brought it here. Police cars. We have older police cars. If you can leave a police car at that store with a job applications hanging out the window, a camera on top, people will leave. That police car, our old and hard to use tactics from different areas, but in DeKalb County, Clayton County, our former sheriff, he used to drop his police car off in front of homes, and he'll tell you he's coming back later on to get it, and you better be gone. And so I think that's a different way of being aggressive without without grabbing people. So if we can look at some of our police cars that are not working right now and put them in some of these zones. I think that people do not, and we're seeing some people behind you nodding right now. And I've been talking about it for 3 years. I've been watching it for years now. So police cars, parking them at these gas stations, at these stores, I think it would show a different level of presence.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. We will look at that, certainly. And we understand that employment and education is our best crime fighting tool.
The Honorable Michael Julian Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief, Deputy Chief. But you kind of mentioned what I was going to ask you about, and that is the licensing of the store that is allowing the loitering and negative behavior to take place. How quickly can you all get some people out there to kind of inspect? Because there's, under our alcohol license code, I mean, you're supposed to, if you've got beer and wine license, you're supposed to maintain a safe environment on your property. Absolutely. You're not supposed to have this type of activity going on. So
we can as early as tomorrow. I'll ensure that occurs tomorrow.
Yeah, because it seems to be, for the problem stores, when the loitering is allowed, what I've heard over the years, and this goes back 30 years, that they say that, oh, these are my customers, these are my friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's why I don't want to run my customers away. But if this stuff is spilling over into the quality of life of people, and we just finished the community development committee, and we had other property owners talking about how they're trying to invest and develop affordable housing, we can't afford
Right.
to have this kind of activity going on close to where children and families live. So if you could keep us abreast of the committee abreast of the progress that you're making with that particular store owner and what's going on their property with us, I would really appreciate it.
Most certainly will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chief, I will be going out to that site today around 5 o'clock to look at what's going on out there and meet the owners at that property as
We'll
well.
meet you out there.
Thank you very much. Ms. Honoree Jordan?
Giving honor to the Spirit of God, everyone that's here. Have the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread. They have not called upon God, Psalm 53, chapter 4, verse. While the fool may deny that God is, the righteous finds in him the object of hopeful prayer for deliverance. James and others seek to eat me up like they eat bread. Beware, lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Colossians 2nd chapter 8 verse. Spoil could also be rendered carry you away from the truth by false teaching. Rudiments of the world are elementary religious teaching coming from the world system. Help you do wrong leads to destruction. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Corrupt are they, and have done abominable iniquity. There is none that doeth good. Psalms 53 and 1. Paul quotes scripture to prove universal guilt. Scripture lead us to obey Jesus, what it's designed for. If any man serve me, let him follow me. And where I am, there shall also my servant be. If any man serve, him will my Father honor. St. John 12, chapter 26, verse. In light of impending judgment, by the analogy of the action, men should spare no effort to right their wrongs. We need what Jesus has for us, to deliver our soul from hell and destruction. And hearing the people talking about people doing wrong, and I'm thinking about how the people upholding James Griff, because he's been called to preach the word of God. And I read the scripture to him because God told me that he was against his word. The scripture says in 31 Proverbs, give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Now man's terms and conditions are being held higher than the word of God. And the word of God created income. They looking at me. But if I can't be subject to Christ, then I cannot create the income. He told me not to work man's job, but his job. His job protects us. His word protects us. Man's protection ain't gonna work like Christ's protection. Thank you.
Dr. DeJuan Robinson?
Afternoon, Council. I have two things I want to speak on today. I was waiting I have some yielded time, Council member, Chairperson Boone.
Yes.
It didn't reflect on the screen, I'm sorry.
Revise that time. Thank you.
I had an open record request I did because I know we were saying that crime is down in Atlanta. And so I did an open record request. And what I've noticed was that I finally got it back after about almost a year. I've seen that the allocation of police cars per zone is not the same. And I just wanted to make sure that we are comparing apples to apples, because when we say places like Zone, District 11, District 12, or District 10 are the safer districts in the city of Atlanta. But we have less police officer, Deputy Chief, and we have less police cars in District 12 than we do all over the district. Now, I understand as a young man that's born and raised here that when you pay tax dollars in Buckhead and Midtown, that you're gonna protect them a little different. We all understand that. We can't fight against that. However, if we're gonna praise districts like 12, District 10, then I think that the fair allocation of officers and cars should also be spread across district line, because it doesn't matter how much taxes we pay in the city of Atlanta. Everybody should be protected the same. And by the grace of God, the people in District 12 are being protected by some higher power, because we don't have enough officers over there and we don't have enough police cars. But yet instead we put in the paper that District 12 Zone 3 is the most, I don't want to misquote, say the safest district, but the most reduced crime district out of all the districts. And I just think if we're going to compare apples, man, I just think it's high time that we do that. I mean, officers across the board are getting raises, and we have come up with these are houses that we are letting the officers live in, and it's across the board. And I think personally that it's helping to reduce crime. When you see a police officer car in the yard in your community, I think you're more likely to turn away from doing crime in that neighborhood. But I just think that it's time that we spread it fairly across Atlanta, because I'm born and raised in District 9 and still live there, and I see a lot of police protection where my council member Dustin Hillis live, but on the other side, where it's majority black folks, not so much. And I don't like it, and it's not right, and it's not fair. I just think that we need to do something about that, because I get it. If you live in a $500,000 house, you want it to be secure. But also those that live in a public house and a $100,000 house need to be secure as well. And we need to have the speed of the officer to get there as well as they get there to Dustin Hillis' neighborhood. And it's high time that we just stop playing those games. And I just think everybody just need to be safe, and everybody have a duty and a right to be safe. And I think we need to have further discussions of that, because we got people that's coming all over the world for the World Cup. And I'm sure we're going to be prepared and ready to go. But I've lived through the Olympics, and life goes back to normal after these big events come. And we know life is going to go back to normal, Councilman Bond, after the World Cup. And it's, you know what I'm saying, the data is going to be whatever it's going to be, and we're going to do these things a little differently, I think. And I just don't want it to be that way. And the second thing, Chairperson Mabone, is that I've been asking for this for about 3 years. Reached out to code enforcement. Ms. Daphne is here. I asked for data to show how many properties have been demolished in District 9 since 2013. I've yet to get a response for the last 3 years. And we have her here today, and I hope we ask her office, because I have my emails while I've been emailing for 3 years, asking about the demolition work that's going on in District 9 since 2013. I've yet to get a single response back. And next time I come in here, I won't come here to be so nice. I will come in here with data that will shame some of those people that are in charge, because it's a shame that I've been asking for this for 3 years, and we can't show how many properties in District 9 have been demolished since 2013. It ain't that hard. It ain't that hard to get this data. Out of respect for you being a chairperson, I haven't come down here and said anything about it. But I'm sick and tired of it, because we need to know. We need to know. You know what I'm saying? You guys are getting paid a lot of money to know. And I agree. I don't speak against the raises y'all getting, because some of y'all work hard. And city council has never been a part-time position. It's always been a full-time position. And I do think that some of y'all rightfully deserve your pay. And as a taxpaying citizen, as a super voter, I want to know how many properties have been demolished since 2013. And I think that's an easy fix. We are the most surveillance city in America, they say, right? I think we can surely find out how many properties have been demolished in District 9, you know? Last but not least, hey, man, you look about 20 years younger, man. You know what I'm saying, with your first haircut. Councilman Bond, you look younger, man. Thank y'all, man. Have a nice day. I got you. Oh, Councilman Lewis, I'm sorry.
And my question, I think I've heard a lot about some of the stuff you're saying right now about allocation of officers and allocation of cars. And so they've been reaching out to me, same people who probably talked to you have probably been reaching out to me about it as well. And so my question to APD is if you can give me a allocation of cars per zone and an allocation of officers per zone. And I would like to know today and like to know January 1st or December 31st, 2024, and today's date, just allocation of officers per zone that we had in 1 through 6, December 31st, 2024, and allocation of officers and cars per zone that we have May 27, 2025, because this would be alarming. I know the good language that we're using now, because I've been using it for a while. God is so good that the police APD is now saying we can't lock our way up out these situations, and we're not going to do it. And we're working with nonprofits and stuff to get stuff done. So God, I'm so happy about where we are as a city, that our police department is speaking with that same exact language. But now on the equity point, similar to like you said, similar to Dr. Robertson, I hope that the allocation is equal per zone, police officers and cars, because we've been fighting in our area, and you're right, we've been able to not lock our way up. We've seen the social mobility going up. We've seen the increase in wages going up in our area, and it's from people who've been living there. So I feel good about that. So thank you again, Dr. Robertson, for bringing that note. Once again, allocation of officers per zone and allocation of cars per zone. Thank you.
Mr. Overton, at this time, we have Ms. Gordon Estes in the audience. If she would come on up, if we could take her appointment to the Atlanta Citizens Review Board now.
Absolutely.
Will you please sound the item for the appointment?
This is item number 18, 25C0061, a communication from Lyndon Waller, Deputy Director at Georgia Coalition for People's Agenda, submitting the appointment of Ms. Anjanetta Gordon Estes to serve as a member of the Atlanta Citizens Review Board. This appointment is for a term of 3 years.
Yes, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to serve on this very auspicious board?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Anjanetta Gordon Estes. I am a member of the People's Agenda, and I live in District 12 under Councilman Antonio Lewis. I've had 22 years of law enforcement experience with the Cobb County Sheriff's Department. I am now retired, and I feel as if my knowledge and experience will be an asset to the review board.
Move approval. Seconded by the Honorable Antonio Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The appointment is confirmed.
Thank you.
This brings us to our presentations. First, we will hear from APD regarding crime statistics. Chief Collier, please come on up.
Good afternoon, Public Safety Chair, Public Safety Committee members. I'm Deputy Chief Collier of the Community Services Division. As we look at our crime this past week, we continue to reduce crime. We're 12% down. However, we did see an increase in our shoplifting numbers, 8%. We did arrest 27. About half of those individuals, when we can, we try to refer those individuals to services. The majority of the time, the owner of the establishment has to be willing to agree to that. We did see an increase, this is a slight increase, on our auto thefts to only 2, but we did have 2 arrests this past week as well. As usual, our rapes, the victims know the suspects. That 200% really sticks out at 3 compared to 1. And so also, we're down 10% year to date. This week, we managed the safety component of a very busy weekend in our city, Memorial Day weekend. We had a lot of passengers come through our airport. We also ensured that the Jazz Festival and the Caribbean Fest were safe as well. We did not receive any reports of significant incidents. We're preparing for summer in our city. The planning of the largest 10K Peachtree Road Race has begun. Our Police Athletic League will take in 120 to 150 children this summer for summer camp. And to continue reducing crime, we'll shift resources to areas that have a history of escalating disputes. Our crime prevention inspectors will be out conducting neighborhood watch training, safety awareness, presentations for our seniors, and security assessments in our city. Our mounted patrol unit will be out in our parks this summer. And our aviation unit will be up in certain areas when possible. And I will take any of your questions at this time.
Do we have questions from the body? The Honorable Ishe Collins. We've been joined by the Honorable Ishe Collins as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so just looking at the crime data and looking at like the 28-day, so there's about, it looks like there are about 31, we had 31 more aggravated assaults, about 44 car break-ins, it was just within the last 28 days. And so I noticed that, and I mean, even the theft from the vehicles, probably 50. So, I mean, we're getting ready to enter the summer months. School is out. We see more people are going to be coming out. Atlanta's going to be bustling with a lot of events. What are the additional, what are some of the things that the police department is doing that's differently done, so that I guess we will start seeing at least even a stagnation of these numbers or even a decrease over time? Because I mean, it looks like we're going to have a pretty busy summer, and I think I'm gonna be outside this summer, probably be a t-shirt everyone is wearing. So knowing that we're seeing these increases, what are we going to do differently to at least try to curtail some of this behavior?
Right, and so with the aggravated assaults, when you do look at 28-day, it is up. However, our shootings are down 26%. What we've seen is a lot of issues involving knives. Also, with our aggravated assaults, they're categorized a little different now. If someone shoots at a house or an apartment and it has 10 people in it, so that's 10 aggravated assaults.
Wow.
Versus what it used to be. And so that's what we're seeing. We are seeing, as I stated, an increase in knife attacks. So we are getting the message out about de-escalation among family members. When knife attacks occur, it's usually the suspect and the victim usually know one another. And so we're going that route as far as educating our citizens about de-escalation tactics, because we all know that calmer heads do prevail. As I stated, we all are having to create summer plans, every unit in the department, because we know that violence does increase, the crimes does increase. And so with our plan, as I stated earlier, we're taking in a lot of kids in our Police Athletic League. Our crime prevention inspectors will be out throughout the city, teaching our residents how to somewhat harden a target, so to speak. And our mounted patrol will be out in our parks. We will place a lot of our resources, as I stated, in areas that are known to have escalating disputes. And so we do look at data each and every day, and we look at it and we deploy our resources depending on what our data tells us as it relates to crime.
Do we know, based on these crimes, like the age range? I mean, I know you talk about PALs and some of those.
It depends on what the crime that we're talking about. Some of our entering autos and car thefts are usually committed by younger individuals. Shoplifting, a little bit older individuals, and our drug sales now are being committed by even older individuals.
Thank you. The Honorable Antonio Lewis.
And My question would be around 911 diversion opportunities and just looking at because now we're transferring a little bit into Zone 4 as well, the 214 opportunities by Zone 4 and 174 by Zone 3. Just making sure that I know one time in this very meeting, we asked that we could add PAD to, it was before you, I apologize, and if we did not ask, I want to ask for it now. We can add the PAD request numbers to this. Like how many times that we divert things over to PAD. I think we've done it before. I want to be able to do it again, because if we had that many opportunities, and I'm just thinking about time spent for officers when they've spent, I'm only asking these questions to right now. I apologize if I'm stealing somebody's thunder a little later, but I won't be able to. So 33,242 hours of our officer time were spent on priority 3 trespassing calls. So just looking at ways, so if you could just let us know how we are diverting to make sure we're doing using all of our resources.
All right, how many? Captain Towns is documenting your requests. So
Thank you.
We'll have that to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any more questions or concerns? Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, presentation, PAD, Policing Alternative Diversion Division Report. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm just delighted to be standing here in front of y'all today to give you our report for our progress to date this year in 2025. I'm Moki Macias. I'm the Executive Director for PAD. And I'd like to take a moment before I start to just acknowledge the team that's here with me today. So I have Denise White, our Deputy Director, Ash Da Silva, who's our Supervisor for Community Response, our pretty new still Director of Community Engagement, Mohammed Hafiz, and our Director of Social Services, Letitia McCall. So I just wanted to thank these members of our leadership and management team that are here with me today, but also who are really the folks leading the team and helping get the work done every day. Let's see if As you all know, PAD is Atlanta's alternate response agency. Our goal is to provide an effective and compassionate response to quality of life concerns, because we know that a cycle of repetitive police engagement and arrest is counterproductive when people are in need of healthcare, housing, and other resources. We take a holistic approach through 3 primary strategies. Just as a refresher: community engagement to educate Atlanta residents and promote alternate response, community response to reduce the burden on traditional first responders, and care navigation to provide long-term support and direct resources to people who would otherwise be arrested. So just some highlights from January through April of this year. As you all are well aware, we started working under a new multi-year contract with the city as of January 2025, which has allowed us to hire new staff and expand our response services to midnight in collaboration with ATL 311. So we were delighted to be able to, at long last, provide those services alongside the 311 team, and are now available 7 a.m. to midnight weekdays. In the first 4 months of 2025, we've responded to over 500 calls for service, and we've engaged hundreds of community members, whether that's through direct outreach, where we're letting people know those resources that do exist in the city, or providing on-site direct aid to individuals that we respond to. In terms of community engagement, as I mentioned, we've hired a new Director of Community Engagement, Mohammed Hafiz, who's been leading our strategy to engage community members through neighborhood and NPU meetings, through community events and forums, and through university and faith-based collaborations. So what you see on the screen is just a snapshot of some of the events that we were able to attend. We also launched this spring our Extended Networks of Care training, which is a training for members of the public as well as our partner agencies who want to learn how to effectively address a mental health crisis. This is a new resource for community members funded by a federal mental health training grant, and we've been able to get that started, and we've already started training community members. We'd be very happy to train folks in your neighborhood if you'd like to invite us in. We've also engaged over 400 businesses through in-person outreach, and we'll begin neighborhood canvassing this summer. In terms of community response, I'm very proud of the work that our team has done this year. As I mentioned, we've responded to over 500 calls in the first 4 months, and and yet still maintained our average response time at 15 minutes. When our teams arrive on the scene, they may first need to de-escalate a situation or help somebody move to a safer location. And then they work to identify what immediate needs and referrals may be needed to address the situation. This may be reconnection to a family member or a service provider, transport to shelter, or referral to healthcare. As you can see here, we're tracking the types of resources and services that our team is providing. And we also enrolled 42 people in PAD's long-term case management or care navigation department. I want to talk a bit about the breakdown of the calls that we're receiving. So although we respond to over 500 calls, the calls continue to be most concentrated in council districts 2, 3, 4, and 5, as you can see here on the screen. We're paying very close attention to that. And what we've done this year is, through our new contract, we also have access to the 911 calls for service data. So we're working closely with 911 to really understand what are the volume of calls coming in within our particular areas, right? Whether by zone or by council district. And of course, to see that, not every zone is receiving the same level of 911 calls, right? So there's a different level of demand being demonstrated in these 911 calls. At the same time, what we see is that there's a substantial number of 911 calls that we believe would be better suited for a PAD response. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. There we go. So just so you have an awareness of the type of calls we're receiving, about 80% of the calls that we're getting sent out to are coming through 311, our primary partner and the partner that we are promoting to community members. A smaller percentage are coming as direct transfers from the 911 system or as direct requests by officers when they are choosing to have our team come out instead of bringing folks to the 24-hour diversion center, which opened in January. For the most part, the calls that we receive are individuals struggling to meet basic needs who may be engaging in activities that disrupt those around them. So knowing that, we did some work around the 911 call data, and just, if you would, just bear with me for a moment because I think it is really important. I'm using the criminal trespass or trespass and panhandling call type as an example because I think it really illustrates the opportunity here. We worked with 911 to analyze a little over 3 years of data. And so everything from, I believe, 2022 through April of 2025. So in looking at those calls, we identified calls that were coming in during the hours we were available and that were for the types of calls that we would likely respond to. And I think the trespass call is a really important one to look at. What we see in these calls is that 99% of these calls are assigned a priority 3 by dispatch. I'm not going to assume everybody knows what that means, but I'll say what I've learned from 911 is that means there's no crime in progress, there's no weapons, there's no physical fight, and there's no threat to life or danger of property being lost, right? The 99% of those calls are getting assigned at a priority 3. There's an average of 63 calls a day during PAD's operating hours that are occurring, right, that have APD getting dispatched out. And for the period that we looked at, that represents over 30,000 hours of officer time, both en route to calls and on scene at the calls, right? This was striking to me, and I think creates a real opportunity to say, are we sending the right responders to calls like these? Could we send PAD instead of sending our sworn officers? So, I want to just sort of make a finer point on this in saying, every zone across the board is seeing over 150 calls of this type every month on average, right? This is average from almost 3.5 years of data. And so, where you see in zone 5, where you have 323 as an average monthly, certainly, we see that as the highest number. But even down to zone 1, we see 164 calls on average of this type, priority 3, as I've described, and using a substantial amount of officer time. So these are the types of calls that PAD could offload if we were receiving direct dispatch from 911. The best part is that when we do, we would not only reduce the dispatch of law enforcement to these calls, but we would then provide a follow-up to those callers and let them know, hey, you don't need to call 911 if you have an issue like this. You can call 311 directly and a PAD team will come out. So we're really trying to kind of re-educate our callers to stay out of our emergency system altogether. So I wanted to just take you down that journey with me a bit because it's something that we're working really closely with APD and 311 on to really identify where are those opportunities for us to increase our call volume, which is our really, truly our biggest priority this year. I want to spend a moment to talk about care navigation because I think this is the work you hear the least about when I'm at this podium. So as I mentioned, for this period, our community response team enrolled 42 people into long-term case management through PAD. And then, of course, our care navigation team is embedded at the diversion center. We're working closely with Grady and other partners there, and we're enrolling folks through the diversion center into our case management as well. When we talk about care navigation, what I really like to lift up is that over 90% of the people we serve are experiencing homelessness when we meet them, right? So because of this, much of our work focuses on assisting them navigate coordinated entry. In this period alone, we conducted 264 coordinated entry assessments, and we're helping people into shelter. We're providing hotel housing as needed. We are also getting people into recovery housing through a partnership with Fulton County, and we're getting people into permanent supportive housing, which, as you know, is a long process. In addition to the housing support that we're providing the kinds of ancillary services and just accompaniment that allows people to be successful in getting housing, right? And that could look like transportation, MARTA cards, food, going to people's appointments with them, going to court with them, so people aren't arrested on an FTA when they're just about to get their apartment, right? So that's the work that our care navigation team does in order to not only be a pathway to other resources, but to provide those resources directly. I want to introduce you to Downtown Brown. Mr. Brown has worked with PAD for several years. He was diverted to PAD while struggling with drugs and alcohol. He was on probation. He went back to jail once when we were working with him, and we kept working with him, which is often part of the process. And now there's a few things that we've gotten to celebrate with him. Eugene here, our housing manager, and Mr. Bean Peters, his care navigator, are pictured here with him at his graduation from a recovery program. He's now celebrating 9 months clean and sober. And has moved into his own apartment through the Georgia State Housing Voucher. So, it's not just the numbers in terms of what our impact is, it is literally humans' lives, right? It is literally the lives of Mr. Brown and many other individuals like him that previously were simply cycling through our system and now are able to really move on to a better life. I want to just close with, I want to close with just a note about our top priorities for the remainder of the year. As I mentioned, we are really laser focused on increasing our call volume. We know that we can do more for community members in our city and to reduce the burden on traditional law enforcement and other responders. So we are laser focused on that. I think we're making really good progress. I'm happy to talk with anybody more about kind of what we're doing and how we're approaching that. Promoting community awareness through our public marketing, through university partnerships, and through our training and volunteer opportunities. And then lastly, we want to really hunker down, I should say, on supporting data-driven decision-making. I was in front of you last year many times. There was lots of conversations about data. There was lots of conversations about impact and about the opportunity for PAD to serve. And what we're able to do as a part of this new contract is actually to create a public dashboard. And so we will be able to have a consistent insight into not only PAD response, but also 911 calls, APD arrests, et cetera, related to concerns for quality of life. That's something that we're working closely with Neighborhood Nexus on. You all might be familiar, very strong local data partner, and we'll be launching that sometime probably late summer. So happy to talk with anybody more about that point. I think there'll be some really good and useful insights for the council as a whole, and then we'll be obviously continuing to include that in our reporting. That is it from me. I'm happy to take any questions.
The Honorable Mary Norwood.
Okay, I want to talk to you about a personal experience with 311 and PAD that happened in the past 2 or 3 days. There was a woman who had a grocery cart with all of her things, obviously had challenges, that was in Roswell Road, just south of Pikes. I placed a call to 311 to tell PAD because it looked like picture perfect for you guys to go intervene. 4 things happened. Number 1, the IVR is miserable. And by IVR, the interactive voice response, because you have to click 3 different times, and every time it starts over and says, if this is an emergency, please hang up, please call 911. It goes on forever. I need PAD and 311 to go through the system, go through it and watch how many times they stop you before you can even report something. So the IVR is miserable, it doesn't work. Number 2, because she was in the middle of the street, when I finally got through to someone, they said, oh no, we can't send someone out if she's in the middle of the street. And I said, how would I know? I've been on this call for 6 minutes trying to get somebody on the phone who could send. And I said, look, I'm a council person. I can call Zone 2 and get somebody out there right now. I am trying to see if PAD and 311 actually work. It didn't. Then 311 with the water outage in my area in the past 24 hours. The calls, you clicked, the page wasn't found, you tried to get through, you couldn't do it, and then I've been out there distributing water for 24 hours, and I know the addresses of the people that were there that had called in, and it was never reported through dispatch. So that's not only PAD, but it's PAD, 311, 911. There is a ton of work we need to do at the level of where somebody actually tries to call. And you can go listen, I'm sure my unhappy comments were recorded, so you're certainly welcome to go and listen to them. But that's what happened. It just did not work.
The Honorable Isha Collins.
Yes, just have a few questions. Well, really just more of a comprehensive one. On slide 11, and you shared the story of Mr. Brown. So in providing your services, just curious of how many people or how many individuals that you've worked with that you believe truly needs the level of support and services like Mr. Brown versus if you call through, versus calling through and want to get in an immediate, assistance with services in hopes of if it's a resolution. Just wanted to kind of understand more of the short term and the short-term investment and the long-term investments that really needs to be made. So if you could just give some more color to that content, that context, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So our care navigation services are really focused on those individuals that, if not for working with long-term case managers and with the services that we provide, would be in jail, right? So when officers call us, or when somebody's diverted to the diversion center, they're automatically connected to a care navigator. When an individual has open cases, which again, most of the folks we're serving are experiencing homelessness, we do not have a system in the city of Atlanta to notify people who do not have an address that they have a court date. And so it is pretty much guaranteed that if you're experiencing homelessness and you have a court date, you're going to get an FTA and you're going to get a warrant, right? So we really prioritize those individuals that are most likely to be involved in the criminal legal system for our long-term case management. And that, frankly, is simply a matter of trying to do as much as we can with limited resources. So that's really what we're looking for, is that sort of nexus between the kinds of needs that they have related to housing and behavioral health, and the nexus of, if not for more sustained engagement, they're likely going to be ending up in one of our local jails within the next couple weeks, right? So that kind of, I hope, helps get a little clearer about who ends up getting enrolled into care navigation. Now, the work of care navigation is helping people access the resources that exist, right? We have a fairly limited number of direct resources ourselves, right? We're not a housing provider per se. And so a lot of that work is truly navigation, right? It's truly helping people get into the healthcare that is available to them, right? Or helping them get their ID so they're able to access the shelters, et cetera. A lot of that work is done on a smaller scale when we engage people through 311, right? When our team shows up and we identify that somebody has particular needs, like, they don't have an ID, so they're not able to get into shelter. Well, we may not be enrolling everybody into case management. Our community response team is telling them, okay, you need an ID, this is where you need to go. Let's call them, make sure that they're open. Oh, you need a ride there? Let me give you a ride there, right? So there is a level of navigation to resources that our community responders are providing on scene every time that they go out to meet somebody.
Great. And last question, what support do you need to address what Councilwoman Norwood has expressed? Because I've had the same issue before, about a year or so ago, but haven't had any calls to that, magnitude. So to hear that is still, that is still an issue. What can we do, or what do you need on our end to, to remove that barrier?
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you, Councilmember Norwood, for bringing that concern up. I'm really sorry that you had a negative experience with that. Unfortunately, our agency is dispatched through 311, but we don't operate 311. It's not our call takers, it's not our IVR. So I really would have to defer to Commissioner Good and the team at ATL 311 for any questions related to the IVR. We're happy to participate in any conversations about ways to make that process more efficient. We'd certainly welcome that. That said, in terms of the safety considerations, like if somebody is in the middle of traffic and like stopping traffic, part of our response is also in collaboration with APD in making sure that they're comfortable with what we are doing in our role and really retaining what they believe is their role, right? So I think to the extent where there may be the need to stop traffic, we're going to defer to our partners at APD in situations where they may need a squad car to be able to do that. Not to say that we don't engage, we engage lots of people on the off ramps, on the side of the road, et cetera. That might be been a judgment call by that 311 call taker, and we'll certainly go back and review that call with 311. We debrief the calls every week with the 311 team, so we can continue to do training, we can continue to sort of right size what our response is. So I'll certainly look into that, but generally speaking, our goal is that there's no wrong door, right? That a caller can call 911 or 311, and if APD needs to come out, APD comes out. If PAD needs to come out, PAD comes out. And that's really what we're striving towards, even if we need to keep sort of tweaking that system to make it more efficient.
Thank you.
Will you send a team to Baker's Ferry Road and ML King Jr. Drive near the Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Baker's Ferry Road and ML King Jr. Drive, right near the Kentucky Fried Chicken. There seems to be 6 to 8 people there or less. Sometimes 3, sometimes 5, but we definitely need some assistance in the area there. And also in the back of 37 Lyndhurst Drive, the Bull location. That's a grocery store. 37 Lyndhurst Drive.
Got it. We can certainly get the team to do outreach.
And the last location is Peyton and ML King Jr. Drive. Peyton and ML King Jr. Drive on both sides.
Got it. Thank you for the time today.
Thank you. Also, we have a comment question from the Honorable Byron D. Amos.
Yes, good afternoon. 3 locations as well. And I think you have been to 2 of them already. But Jet and Elm, that corner there, in the English Avenue community. Also, Joseph B. Boone between Brawley and Griffin, the old Simpson Street Plaza. So we have been able to encourage them to leave the plaza parking lot. Now they are across the street, and they are those who desire to be out there all day, just so won't no one get me on day. And then the 3rd location is definitely the corner of Lowry and Boone. Several businesses we have, if you go back out there, seeing we have been able to close down. So their former, I guess, customers are just hanging in the parking lot. The other thing is, I know you go out a lot and people refuse your service. Do you keep track of how many locations that you have been to? Like, if I gave you your intersection, you can tell me, oh, we've been out there 5 times. Okay, so I follow that up in a separate email.
Yep.
Because the community call you, you come out, they call APD, comes out. So there's a different type of strategy that must be taken when people just wantonly return back to the same property they don't live around and just harass the community. So if you can even give me that information, because it's always called PAD. Well, if we can call PAD 15 times and the people have turned them down, there's something else we need to do different. So I follow with email. Thank you.
Sure, certainly.
Thank you. Any more questions or concerns? The Honorable Michael Julian Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation today. Congratulations on having extended hours, because that's been an issue I've raised with PAD over the years, is making sure that they were able to expand, beyond 7 p.m. So I'm glad that you all are doing that. But I guess the question I have is kind of in the vein of what Council Member Amos was saying. I think you said, I think in here it says it's somewhere over 300 engagements that you all have had since January. Is that correct? Did I see that?
Yeah, we've provided direct services to 364 people.
How many?
Through our community response
How many
team.
total calls for service? Is that
514.
so out of 514? So can you just kind of explain, how do you all work with the Diversion Center?
Sure.
Yeah, and kind of explain that, because
Yeah.
I know that was a concern raised by supporters of PAD before the Diversion Center opened. So how are you all working together now?
Well, those supporters may have been misinformed, because I tell you, I spent 8 years of my life trying to get that diversion center open. We're thrilled that it's open, and it has allowed us to address many of the concerns that APD has raised over the years with the mobile response, right? At this point, APD is able to bring somebody to the diversion center 24/7, 365 days a year. And if that individual is inebriated, unable to consent because they are inebriated, they can still go to the diversion center because there's a sobering center there. It takes officers 3.5 minutes to do a drop-off, which means they are in and out very, very quickly, much more quickly than it would take to book somebody for the charge they're being diverted. That said, if an officer, for any reason, would prefer that we do the transport, we are available to officers to do that. So the same process that we've done for many years, an officer can call the dedicated line to request our team. Our team will show up within 30 minutes or less. As I mentioned, our average is 15 minutes citywide. And then our team will show up and actually engage with that individual, enroll them into care navigation, figure out shelter, resources, housing, et cetera. Now, during the evenings, because there are so few resources available, the arrangement that we have with the diversion center is that we will just transport that individual directly to the diversion center. So after 7 p.m., we're able to actually just bring individuals to the diversion center if an officer has diverted them to us. So it's a very close collaboration. We have our care navigation staff on site there at the center, so we can do intakes, directly there. And then we're working closely with them to basically kind of track people's progress over time.
Now, I guess to follow also in the vein of what Councilmember Amos had mentioned is when he was talking about documenting, I guess, where you all have been. Mm-hmm. And so who is your all's host agency? It's 311, right? Who you contract with? Or is it
We're
Human
contracted
Services?
Directly with the city, so it's
No, I
not
said
through
which
a department, but we work, our partner agency is 311.
It's 311.
That's right.
So at some point, I'd like to make the suggestion that in the same way that we do beat realignment analysis, where we look at the trends of where calls are coming in for service, that we do the same thing with this service, because he's right. So if you all are going to the same location 20 times, there needs to be a different response to that. And so at some point, Madam Chair, I think we need to develop a strategy for capturing that data and reflecting it on an annual basis to see best where PAD can be applied. Because I know that and I'm not going to belabor this, because I know we got to get to our other agenda, but just like the program that we're doing, and I think that Councilwoman Boone and Councilwoman Overstreet have gotten with Councilwoman Bakhtiari on that program in the community where they're doing homeless outreach that's built out of the East Atlanta Village, that perhaps some greater over an umbrella, I guess, of pointed service, right? Because if you're getting 60 calls in District 3 and 75 in District 2, then the way that your personnel is deployed, needs to be in response to that, right? So at some point, I think we need to have a conversation about having a regular process to better target where your services are. And also to point out that I don't necessarily support PAD necessarily being diverted to some of these crises like what Councilwoman Norwood mentioned, because a lot of times when people, you may see the charge of, disorderly conduct or what's the other one when you're on somebody's property, this criminal trespassing, which seems like a low-level offense, but 9 times out of 10, that individual probably has a record of something more serious in his past. And so I wouldn't want to put the personnel at PAD necessarily at risk, right? If you show up and you're dealing with, you don't know what you're dealing with. So at long term, we really do need to address which are the best situations to have civilians, like folks who work at PAD, respond to, because we don't want to have you all at risk. But that's basically all I had to say today. But I'm glad to know that the situation with the diversion center, because, I don't know where you were when the gearing up for the diversion center was, but there were a lot of people who came to this microphone and they were all thinking that the diversion center was going to supplant your operation, and I'm glad that did not happen.
Yeah, I do think the opening of the diversion center allows us to focus farther upstream, which is why, we brought up the idea of the 911 trespass calls, because our team would be well-suited to respond to calls that are listed as priority 3 and be able to engage that individual without involving law enforcement whatsoever, whereas the diversion center is really for those cases in which law enforcement has already been engaged. So I appreciate your comments very much, and thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right, with that, Madam Chair, that brings us to our consent agenda. We'll first take the action on our favorable claims.
Can we have a motion to approve the favorable claims? Moved by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis, seconded by the Honorable Ishay Collins. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The claims have been approved.
Can we have a motion to adverse the unfavorable claims? Moved by the Honorable Ishay Collins, seconded by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The unfavorable claims have been adversed. Madam Chair, that brings us to our regular agenda, starting with ordinances for second reading. Beginning with item number 1, 25-01270, an ordinance by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to waive Division 4 of Chapter 2, Article 10, the Procurement and Real Estate Code, to authorize the mayor or his designee to retroactively exercise a third renewal option under an agreement number listed herein for AFRD Online Training Management System Special Procurement Agreement to provide online annual firefighting and medical certification with contractor Target Solutions Learning, LLC, on behalf of the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective from February 6, 2025 through February 5, 2026, and an amount not to exceed $97,075.00 to ratify services rendered in connection with this agreement beginning February 6, 2025. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Move approval. Second. Seconded by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Madam Chair, if there are no objections, can we take item number 2 and 3 together?
Please proceed.
Item number 2, 25-01294, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Wan to amend Chapter 10, Alcohol Beverages of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances at section to be filled in at a later date to create an alcohol license auto plea program and for other purposes. And item number 3, 25-01301, an ordinance by council members Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, and Michael Julian Bond to amend the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances at Chapter 10, Article 2, Division 2, Subdivision 3, Section 10-109.1, penalties for due cause findings by the License Review Board and penalties imposed by the mayor, such that the mandatory minimum of 5-day suspension shall only be imposed upon the second offense of failure to renew a license on or prior to January 1st within 2 years and for other purposes.
Motion to hold. Second. Seconded by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. Both items have been held in committee. That brings us to item number 4, 25-01305, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the Office of the Public Defender on behalf of the City of Atlanta to accept a grant in the $250.00 over the period of 2 years from Immigrant Justice Corps for the placement of a fellow to assist the Office of the Public Defender in providing immigration deportation defense and advisory or counsel, waiving the provisions of Section 2-910 of the Atlanta Code of Ordinances requiring prior authorization of grant applications, amending the FY 2026 budget to reflect grant funds anticipated and appropriated, and for other purposes.
Move approval. Seconded by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Madam Chair, that brings us to our resolutions, starting with item number 5. This is 25R3524, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against the City of Atlanta in the case of Cherry Farrell v. City of Atlanta, Civil Action Fire 22 EV 002099, pending in the State Court of Fulton County, State of Georgia, in the amount of $295.00. The settlement amount, authorizing the settlement amount to be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Move approval. Seconded by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. That brings us to our papers held in committee. Madam Chair, we took number 18 at the beginning of the meeting to confirm the appointment of Ms. Gordon Estes to the Atlanta Citizens Review Board. We will next bring item number 16 off of held. This is item number 16, 25-0-1156, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond to amend Chapter 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to permit restaurants
Remember, you went out, Mark. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. This is item number 16, 25-0-1156, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond to amend Chapter 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to permit restaurants licensed for the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises to secure additional and separate licenses for the retail sale of malt beverages / beer and / or wine for off-premise consumption, and to provide that any restaurants choosing to apply for and secure separate licenses for the retail sale of malt beverages / beer and or wine for off-premises consumption shall meet the qualifications and requirements for such package sales licenses, including the distance requirements and the payments of all applicable license fees, in addition to meeting the qualifications and requirements for a license to sell alcohol for on-premise consumption as a restaurant. And where there shall be any conflict between such qualifications and requirements, the more stringent shall control and for other purposes. Madam Chair, we have a request to substitute this item.
Motion to bring forth the substitute. Seconded by the Honorable Vice Chair Dustin Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before the body. The substitute adds language that limits the quality of alcoholic beverages that may be sold for off-premise consumption in a single transaction. I will read the caption once, the substituted caption now. This is item number 16, 25-0-1156, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond as substituted by the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to amend Chapter 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to permit restaurants licensed for the sale of alcohol for consumption on premises to secure additional and separate licenses for the retail sale of malt beverages / beer and or wine for off-premise consumption, and to provide that any restaurants choosing to apply for and secure separate licenses for the retail sale of malt beverages / beer and or wine for off-premise consumption shall meet their qualifications and requirements for such package sales licenses, including the distance requirements and payments of all applicable license fees, in addition to meeting the qualifications and requirements for a license to sell alcohol for on-premise consumption as a restaurant. And where there shall be any conflict between such qualifications and requirements, the more stringent shall control, to incentivize holders of licenses for retail sale of malt beverages / beer and or wine for off-premise consumption to adopt limitations in the amount of malt beverages / beer and or wine for off-premise consumption sold within a single transaction and for other purposes.
Do we have a motion? Motion by the Honorable Michael Julian Bond, seconded by the Honorable Byron D. Amos. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable as substituted. Madam Chair, that concludes our legislative agenda.
Do we have any announcements, questions, or concerns? If not, this meeting is adjourned.